right after. We will send you interesting information. Has just been updated. Please follow along. US and Russian officials have concluded talks in Saudi Arabia in the Black Sea between Ukraine and Russia paves the way for broader peace talks. Washington said the immediate goal of the negotiations in Saudi Arabia is a ceasefire in the Black Sea, ensuring freedom of navigation and export of food from Ukraine. Before that, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said, "No documents will be signed. The Kremlin has made clear any agreement on the Black Sea. They must meet Russia's requirements, including the easing of sanctions with the export of food and fertilizer of Moscow." Parallel to that, chairman of the Russian Upper House Foreign Affairs Committee said, "All the problems have been raised in Saudi Arabia." The conversation was tense, full of challenges, but it's very useful for both us and the American side. At the same time, there's a lot of important issues that have been discussed, he added. Of course, we're a long way from solving everything or reach consensus on all points. But it seems that these kinds of discussions, it happened at the right time. North Atlantic Treaty Organization NATO has launched a large-scale multinational exercise, Dynamic Mariner Flotex 2.5 off the southwest coast of Spain. This is the largest planned exercise by NATO in 2025. Dynamic Mariner Flotex 2.5 involving about 4,000 military personnel, warships to submarines, amphibious units and aircraft from 9 member countries: French, German, Italian, Portuguese, Spanish, Croatian, US, Greece and Turkey. It's in the Western Mediterranean and the Atlantic, including the waters under Spanish sovereignty. Dynamic Mariner Flotex 2.5 will last until 4 quarters. According to the Spanish Ministry of Defense, for the purpose of testing the ability to project the Navy commands and controls amphibious operations, anti-submarine warfare and cyber defense, and many other areas. It also incorporates advanced technologies. UAV drone. Dynamic Mariner Vortex 2.5 marks the first international deployment of the Ajax, is the most advanced submarine of the Spanish Navy. The Spanish Ministry of Defense. The exercise is a milestone in the modernization of Madrid's submarine force. According to NATO's MACOM Alliance Maritime Command, the exercise will also carry out the protective duties of the military on the sea routes of importance, living in an increasingly complex security environment with a focus on strengthening and coordinating in real time. Another important goal of the exercise was to train the Western Navy to the Allied Rapid Response Force, NATO's AF, in July. MACOM notes RF is Fast Response Force, organized according to special model to deploy quickly and effectively in a short time to deal with many security challenges. This includes the usual threats and in cyberspace. Between Russia and the United States, two countries have the world's largest nuclear arsenal. There are signs of a restoration of European relations under observation. It's predicting a new world order is taking shape. There's been a lot of attention and concern about what the implications of a deal between the US Donald Trump and his Russian Vladimir Putin, especially to Europe's security architecture. Trump and his team of 5 are pushing hard to achieve peace in Ukraine. However, this leader is putting Europe and the KF aside. This worries America's allies. Washington could put pressure, force Ukraine to accept unfavorable conditions, like giving up territory, using minerals to pay back American aid over 3 years of conflict. Meanwhile, US refuses to provide actual security guarantees. It also warned against protecting NATO allies, according to the if they don't increase defense spending. The president's job. Donald Trump changes US foreign policy more friendly to Russia, suspend Ukrainian military aid. They even threaten traditional allies. It's causing Europe to rethink of dependence on American weapons systems. The United States supplies nearly 2/3 of European arms in recent years. Many systems depend on American workers in maintenance and operation. This makes the member states. The EU is worried about what could happen if Washington stops supporting US-made weapon systems that NATO allies in Europe use. Now some European countries have started to reconsider equipment purchased from the US to assess the risk of harm in a potential conflict with Russia if Washington cuts off support. More and more countries are calling for a switch, the future of American weapons, and focus on the local industry. Although many people admit that there's no quick fix after 10 years. Depends on Washington. Last weekend, when it was announced that Boeing would produce the F-4 6th-generation fighter jet, Trump says the version sold to allies. It may not be fully functional, like the American version, because one day, maybe they're no longer our allies. Several countries have or are planning to buy F-35 aircraft from the United States. They are considering alternatives. Rasmus Jallup, chairman of the Defence Committee of the Danish Parliament, I recently posted on social media that he was one of the people who decided by the Danish F-35. I'm sorry to have to do that. Denmark is increasing its defence spending. After Mr. Trump said that Greenland needs better protection and claims, we'll take the island one way or another. Jallup called for avoiding buying US weapons if possible. I can imagine a situation where the United States wants Greenland to take from Denmark and threatened to turn off our weapons if we refuse. Buying American weapons is a security risk that we can't accept. When Trump was elected to a second term, Europe has anticipated growing pressure from the US on increasing defense spending. They claim that the purchase of American weapons can meet some of that requirement and bring Mr. Trump the trade victories you want. But changes in policy, your relations with Russia, it makes some people think again. Concerns rise as Trump suspends military aid and sharing information for Ukraine after a heated argument with the president, Volodymyr Zelensky. In the Oval Office at the end of February, an anonymous EU diplomat said that this bloc should leave the spending initiative on new defense for American companies, at least in part if necessary. EU diplomat says no matter what people say, we are still very dependent on America. At least in the next 15 years, we are still dependent on the American presence in Europe, whether it's alertness or their strategic transport flights. While Europe, there are alternatives to equipment like fighter jets. Their defense industry is fragmented across 6 locations and is not comparable to the giant American industry. Building critical capabilities can take years. However, officials and analysts say there's a couple of reasons to predict that Europe will not leave soon. Dependence on American weapons. Recently, an American journalist was accidentally brought into a conversation officials, key in the presidential administration. Donald Trump discusses top-secret military plan to attack Houthi armed groups in Yemen. Specifically according to CNN, Jeffrey Goldberg, editor-in-chief of The Atlantic magazine, surprise added to group top chat officials of the US government. Some officials, other people are also present in the group conversation. Consultant Stephen Miller, Susan's chief of staff, Gillespie, and special envoy Stephen Whitcup. Roberts said he was featured in a conversation on the channel. It's called A Small Group PC Hotel, and realized that 18 members of the group are people from President Trump's cabinet. Singapore is a commercial chat app. It is not allowed by the US government to share sensitive information. The Atlantic editor-in-chief Goldberg said he removed sensitive information from the article, the identity of a senior CIA officer and current activity information. National Security Council spokesman Brian Hookrest. The White House has confirmed the leak. This statement says, this appears to be a sequence of authenticated messages that a phone number was accidentally added. This series of messages, a testament to policy coordination, deep and thoughtful among senior officials. The continued success of the campaign targeting there is no threat to the military or security. National security. Same day, US President Donald Trump said he was not aware of the case, and I'm not a fan of The Atlantic magazine. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt later stressed, President, I have full confidence in my national security including team. National Security Advisor Mike Pence. In a related development in the middle of the U.S. military's Central Command CENTCOM said the U.S. military launched the operation against Houthi group Iran-backed in Yemen. Specific CENTCOM tel has implemented a series of activities precision aimed attacks at the targets of Houthi Iranian-backed forces across Yemen, to protect American interests, to deter the enemy, and restore freedom of navigation. With CENTCOM's announcements at the time, share on social networks unrolled President the book. Donald Trump said, the U.S. has launched a large-scale military operation in Yemen. He said the effort included airstrikes in Leader's base and Houthis' missile defense system, with the aim of restoring freedom of navigation in the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden. Attacks by Houthi forces in Yemen with missiles and drones. The U.S. Department of Defense sent another carrier to the Middle East to fight alongside the Harry S. carrier group. Truman is operating in the area. The decision takes place in the context of the U.S. Donald President Trump announced they will be destroyed quickly. and warned Iran not to support. Houthi spokesman said, "Our rocket force. They've targeted Israel's Ben Gurion airport with Palestinian hypersonic ballistic missiles too. The campaign has successfully achieved its goal. Air operations at this airport have been suspended for more than half an hour. And in response to 10 American airstrikes into our country in the last hours, we've mobilized the missile force and unmanned aerial vehicles and fought the U.S. aircraft carrier USS Harris Truman and some enemy ships in the Red Sea. The confrontation lasted for hours. Houthis' move took place in the context of Israel resumption of military operations in Gaza, and the U.S. stepped up its Houthi airstrikes in recent times. Before that, White House National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, U.S. military air campaign in Yemen. It was launched more than a week ago, killed many of Houthis' key leaders, including the group's top missile expert. The media previously reported about 50 people were killed and more than 100 injured in the American airstrikes. In the midst of tension with the exam, U.S. media quoted a Defense Department source as saying, "It was decided to send more aircraft carriers." USS Vinson arrives in the Middle East to join the group. The aircraft carrier Harry S. Truman, it's been extended in the region for another month. Decided to send more aircraft carriers to the Middle East to be a deterrent message from the United States, both the Waiter and Iran. It's supposed to be a supportive country, U.S. President Donald Trump recently warned, although Houthi has suffered great damage in recent years. But it's going to get worse. U.S. leader also warned Iran not to support Houthi, because sooner or later this armed group will also lose. In response to Iran's Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, given that Iran does not have any proxies in the region, and retirement exams operate completely independently according to the mechanism, threats against Iran, it's also unacceptable. America should know that this country will never achieve its goal by threatening Iran. They should understand that we've never initiated conflict with any country. But if the AI acts maliciously and starts a war, they're going to get slapped. From 11 to 1,023, Houthi forces have raided ships more than 100 times. It is believed to be connected to Israel in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Ottawa, to show support for the Palestinian people. In the Israeli-Hamas conflict, campaign of the poet has seriously disrupted operations in the maritime route. That's 12% of global trade. From 1901 ago, stop attacking ships when the ceasefire in Gaza goes into effect. However, Israel, we're going back to military operations here. Tensions in the Red Sea have also increased with the back attack of most